There was a wave of joy in the assembly. Trijata Agori ran to Srimali and lifted him up on his shoulder. He shrieked with joy, and putting down Srimali on his feet on the dais, he went back to his place. People were stunned. How can such an ordinary looking man be so extraordinary? Srimali ji undoubtedly was a great master. It was not possible to fathom the knowledge of the man who could challenge Kapali Baba and win. Kapali Baba looked exhausted. His face was white, and in place of anger, there was entreaty in his eyes. His fellow Agoris found themselves feeling weak and looked deflated. Srimali ji asked, Kapali Baba, do you have anything else in your mind? Having survived Baba's last fatal blow, now he looked angry. His eyes were red. His entire body seemed to be in flames. Srimali ji continued, Kapali Baba, each sadhana has its own rules. No sadhana goes beyond them. One would not try even on a deadly enemy what you have tried on me. Such experiments are against tantric values and against humanity. The kind of experiment you tried on me shows that you have no humanity in you. Had you tried it on a mountain, it would have been blown up and vanished without leaving a trace behind. No one would have known that a mountain ever existed there. Kapali Baba, I am not going to spare you now, but I shall treat you humanly. You tried 2 experiments, I shall try only one. If you survive this, if you endure it, I shall acknowledge defeat. I would have liked to finish you, but I cannot give up humanity. I warn you, within 3 minutes, I shall use my power. Take care if you wish to. His face hardened and flushed as he said this. Sparks seemed to be coming out of his eyes. He waved his hand in the air. The next moment it came down. His clenched fist opened and something seemed to jump out of it. The next thing I remember is Kapali Baba collapsing in a heap on the floor and blood oozing out of his mouth. There was terror in his eyes and death seemed close by. Several tantrics stood up simultaneously and threw a ring around Baba. The light in his eyes seemed to be fading. His face was getting paler and blood continued to flow from his mouth. One had the feeling that if something was not done within the next 2 or 3 minutes, Kapali Baba would not live. At that moment, in a commanding voice, Srimali ji asked people to move away from Baba or they would also have to face a similar experiment. He said that he would save Baba's life if he asked for his pardon. Immediately, the tantrics and agoris went back to their seats. Blood was still coming out of Baba's mouth and coloring the floor red. But he was conscious. He folded his hands in acknowledgement of his defeat. Srimali ji and Burbua Baba got down from the dais and walked up to him. Srimali ji waved his hand and obtained something from the air and threw it on Baba. The next moment, blood stopped flowing out of his mouth. He pulled up Baba by his hand and made him sit up. He regained full consciousness within 2 minutes and put his head on Srimali ji's feet. Ma Krupalu Bhairavi said, now my suggestion should be carried out and Kapali Baba should agree to become Srimali ji's disciple. Burbua Baba went back to the dais with Kapali Baba. Srimali ji stood close by. The entire assembly was stupefied. There was awe and wonder in people's eyes. In a weak voice, Kapali Baba admitted his defeat. He said, I have lost. My siddhis and kritya have been turned futile by you. Therefore I agree to be your disciple. Srimali ji said, Kapali Baba is older than I I respect him because of his age, but he is the loser. He has requested me to accept him as my disciple. I do not believe in these things, but I do not want to disobey Ma Krupalu Bhairavi. I shall therefore take Kapali Baba as my disciple. As he said this, he plucked a few strands of hair from the front of Baba's head as a symbol of his acceptance of him. There was a general hum of joy and satisfaction. All those present stood up and they surrounded Sri Maliji. In spite of his old age, Burbua Baba came forward and gathered him in his arms. There were tears of happiness in his eyes. All expressed their approval in one voice. For about 15 minutes, there were sounds of amazement and joy. It was accepted with one voice that Sri Maliji was undoubtedly the greatest in the area of Siddhi, that is, tantric practices, and that the treasure he possessed was priceless and imperishable. At Burbua Baba's repeated request, there was silence in the assembly. Everyone went back to his seat. The oldest in the assembly, Dehur Baba, stood up. He made a cut in his right thumb, and with his blood he inducted Sri Mali as the chairman. Addressing the convention, Burbua Baba said, "I am very happy today as we have solved a very knotty problem. I have known Sri Maliji and his sadhana, that is, tantric practices. He is a master of Tantra, Mantra and all types of sadhana. He has mastered the highest of siddhis, and you have just had the evidence of this. Not only mine, but everyone's eyes were turned towards Sri Mali. The flush of anger on his face, which we had seen a while ago, had gone. He seemed totally unaffected by the jubilation of the people around him. Even the honor of the chairmanship of this unique and greatest tantric convention had not produced a trace of arrogance in his demeanor. Instead, there was compassion and love in his eyes.